Today I'm speaking with Moo Webber, founder of Holy Cow Creative and a client of Agency Futures. Moo has spent nearly 3 decades building a boutique Sydney agency known for thoughtful creative work and long-standing relationships. Recently, Holy Cow entered a new chapter, joining the Heads and Tails content agency within Hardie Grant Media. Moo, welcome, and thank you for taking the time to talk with us, especially in the middle of what I imagine is quite a busy integration period following the deal.
Thanks, Simon. Yep, very busy, but very happy.
Before we talk about the acquisition and what the process was like, for people who may not have come across Holy Cow Creative before, how would you describe the agency and the kind of work that you do?
We describe ourselves as an independent design and digital agency. We work with brands largely in the healthcare and welfare space, but we define that as health, care and lifestyle. And we offer a number of services, including brand advisory and a whole range of creative services.
Every agency has an origin story, and usually it begins with someone deciding they want to sort of do things their way. Thinking back to 30 years ago, what was happening in your world when you first decided to start Holy Cow?
Well, I'd always wanted to start my own business. Even as a child, I was very industrious and had a number of little businesses going on the side with cats and pets and dog walking and all sorts of things. And then, so I think I just was really attracted to the commerce of it all. But I was working in Sydney in a large agency and just felt that the cultural fit was so bad for me. I was working for somebody who didn't appreciate their staff, didn't appreciate their clients, didn't have the love and respect that I had for them. And it always just felt so jarring to me. So then I was offered this opportunity through a good friend of mine at the time to work for a big client. Was sort of tossing up overnight whether or not that client would come into the agency I was working in and feel loved and respected, and, you know, would they be treated as they deserve to be treated? And it was such a great opportunity. Asked if I could take them on if I set up my own business, and that was the beginning. And that was a big Australian property client, and that sort of set me up from there. So it was a really wonderful start, but looking back, wow, how lucky was I at that time, but to take that opportunity as well.
A foundation client, as it were, is the one thing that you often hear. And so that was in the property sector, was it?
That's right. So property development company, but then they have a number of retail assets. So we're working on a whole lot of retail shopping centres. And that began my great love of retail, which continues to this day. We've always and continue to have retail assets as part of our client portfolio.
Yeah. And so then at what point during those sort of early years did you begin to realize that this has become a real business rather than just sort of a freelance gig into a new client? I
think when I got my first employee, which was at the 6-month mark, I managed to sort of tough it out on my own for that period, which was still, you know, fantastic. But then I got my first employee, and then I really knew it was like, wages, insurance, all of those things that come with, you know, being an actual business. But once I, you know, took that plunge, no, we didn't look back. And then I quickly got my third and my fourth, etc. So yeah, it was a milestone, but it sort of took me to the next level. Yeah, and here you are, you know, 3 decades later. Yeah. When I guess the industry changes dramatically. I mean, look at what's been happening recently. Clients will inevitably turn over, and the business has to evolve with that change. Looking back over your journey so far, what are you most proud of with what you built with Holy Cow? I think I'm proud of the culture that I was always sort of dedicated to. I mean, obviously it has evolved over time. It does need to change when your team grows, when cultural, I guess, influences around you change, and also trends and norms, and of course technology. But I'm really proud of the fact that I always have tried with all my heart to, you know, put people at the center of it, and that starts with my team, because I can't have, you know, a flourishing successful business if my team aren't flourishing and thriving and loving what they do. Now, obviously, that's not always 100% possible, but generally that was my dedication, putting my team first so that then they would put the clients, first. And that has, I believe that's really paid off. We had a number of team members that have stayed for many, many years, and a number of clients that I've had 10 plus years and even one over 20 years. So I know that that's been, testament to, really putting that at the focus and the heart of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And so do you think that obviously culture is hugely important to any agency, especially so with Holy Cow. Do you think that's the key point of difference with Holy Cow? I mean, what do you think has helped the agency sort of stand out over the years?
Well, I think that foundation of that culture allows us then to attract really good creative people and then to maintain them. So therefore we can keep that, continuity of service, and the creativity that we're known for is just a given. And then building relationships with our clients, that is the second part of that. And that allows us to just maintain our, really rewarding, mutually beneficial relationships that deliver great results. And then the creative then, or the execution or the campaign then delivering great results, then just brings that back into the cycle, and we just move on to the next project and the next, and constantly building. So I think that's what's made us stand out, that focus.
And then I guess there comes a point where many founders begin to think about the future of the business, sort of beyond themselves. When did the idea of selling first become real for you, and what made you ultimately decide that the time was right?
Well, if we back up even a few more years before we actually met, Simon, I was thinking about this in the lead up to my 25-year anniversary, which was in 2020. So if you imagine what was happening around that time, so if you look a week prior to the 1st of April in 2020, the world changed, the world shut down. So I was actually looking to do something like that at that time. But then because of COVID, I made the decision to stay with it, to make sure my team were safe and employed, and to offer some support and guidance to our clients too. So I'm proud to say that I didn't have to let anyone go at that time on my team. That it was just a wonderful opportunity to sort of, for other people to do different things as they did, like move remotely, have a baby, that sort of thing. But I was able to hold on to everyone, which I'm to this day very proud of, obviously with government support, thank you, but also just that ability to be able to guide some of our clients, and many of whom were retail clients at that time. And as we know, retail was so severely affected.
Absolutely.
That we're able to offer them some sort of guidance and continuity through that period. And, ourselves obviously having to, reframe so many of the things that we did and the way that we did them, but we were able to weather that storm and then come out at the other end.
And then we met probably a year ago as you were starting to think more seriously that the time is right, it's upon us. How did you find working with Agency Futures through the process?
I found you and Doug to be fantastic guides, and obviously having this bank of knowledge and this wonderful sort of network that I felt I could, count on. So, I think I've first found you when I saw something you did on LinkedIn probably 5 years ago, probably around that time. And then I just thought, that's good to know that, one day when I'm thinking about doing this, that there's an agency I can call on. And I think we might have even had a phone call or something at that time. And I just always sort of kept you in mind. And then I think you reached out to me when you were looking at when you'd established Merge Express, which was like the perfect way in for me, I thought. Selling such a small boutique business with me at the front and center of it would always be a hard thing to do, because it was so personal and because it was so sort of leader focused, and even to the name, the very name of it. So I loved that opportunity to sort of meet and discuss that there was actually ways that we could think about this that might be a little bit different. And so your whole Merge Express proposition, I think, was, so smart and so accessible for me, and it felt much more manageable and achievable than, a business sale per se.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's lovely feedback. Thank you. That's great to hear. And so, Moo, we, through the process, entertained a number of conversations with potential buyers. We met with Hardie Grant Media and Heads and Tails. How do you know that the buyer is the right one for you?
I think for me, it was instinct. It's trusting your instincts, trusting your feelings, and then just note and pay attention to any red flags or any misgivings you might have. Often in business, we're not taught to trust or rely on our feelings, but I think with these things, given you're going to really, in my case, share my baby, my life, my 30-year, child really with these new people, I need to know that, we have a cultural fit. I need to know that they're good people. I need to know that they are trustworthy. And those were the things that were really important to me. So I did trust my instincts there, and they have not let me down. I know that may not be the case for all sorts of businesses and all sorts of mergers, but certainly for me, I would just trust your instincts anyway, because they guide you.
That's great. And also as part of that, perhaps also when you do have a concern, is to not be afraid of asking the question.
And I think it's just, you soon find the measure of each other through the question and answer period, and certainly through the legal process. And I think that's where you can really, discover what you're each made of. And I think that's a really important thing when you're about to embark on this, hugely collaborative journey together.
You've sort of made the decision, you're working through, you've got an LOI, you understand the terms that have been agreed with a potential acquirer. One of the things that a lot of founders grapple with is that moment where during a sale, when you need to tell your team, you need to tell the team there's going to be some significant change. Curious as to, I know that was something that you also were concerned about and so on. How did you handle that conversation with your team, and how did they react to the news?
Well, I think I seeded it a little bit further out, and it almost became a conversation piece for us that we were looking to replace some team members that had recently left, and we were looking ahead at sustainability for the business. The timing of it was great for me because it allowed me to really focus on the strategy for the year ahead, which is how I described it towards the end of last year, which is when we made that decision, and we knew it was going to go ahead pretty much, as far as you can know these things before you actually sign. And I traditionally work on the strategy for the year ahead around October, November. So I was able to sort of keep my team updated in that I'm working on it. This is thinking about this sustainability for the long term, rather than just short-term hires or short-term reactions to things around us in the market. Obviously, AI is a huge thing for anyone in our business, our industry, thinking about what that means for us, and especially for such a small team, which I think again pays so much kind of testimony towards the Merge Express concept, because it allows people to join forces to withstand those things and to really, reframe strength in numbers. So again, good work for you guys, like coming up with such a great idea. But it's also fantastic for us because it allows us to join forces with a larger entity and think about how that, together we can, withstand and I guess almost reinvent what being a creative agency means. And then so when I was able to tell them finally, it wasn't like a big shock, but it was a really pleasant surprise. And especially given where we have actually landed, being part of something as strong and sort of credible and creative as Hardie Grant Media, and also joining forces with another creative agency with similar offers, completely shared culture and values. So that became so exciting to the team rather than something scary. Of course, there was concerns about what would it look like and what does it mean for me and how long does it, that sort of thing, which is completely understandable no matter who you are. But generally, overwhelmingly, the response was very positive to be part of something so great.
And so once a deal is done, I guess the story doesn't end. It's just the beginning of a new chapter. And Holy Cow is now part of a larger creative group in Heads and Tails and Hardie Grant Media. What excites you most about the next chapter?
I guess like my team, just being part of something bigger, being part of a, like a nationally recognized powerhouse and being able to, I guess, work on some different creative challenges. So obviously as the leader in a small company, you kind of cover so many things. And I love that too, being able to do so many different things. But I love the idea of also being able to do one or two things, and do them really well and work with people who are similarly committed to those one or two things, and knowing that there's another team behind you that are doing the other things to make it happen. So personally, I am very interested in the brand strategy side of things, which is why I set that up as a standalone service 2 years ago in Holy Cow, because we're seeing such a need for that. Particularly, it's not just our industry that needs to reinvent itself, but there's so many others that are affected by all sorts of global forces, not just AI. But hospitality, retail, healthcare, like they're all susceptible to such swift transformation in every aspect of our lives. So I love the idea of being able to guide and lead brands and organizations through that process. And we call it sort of reflect and redefine. And I think it's just really a fantastic thing to be able to offer clients in a really intentional but experienced way. So I'm really excited about being able to do that with some other clients as well, with Heads and Tails and Hardie Grant Media.
So before we wrap up, if you could just go back and just reflect over your sort of journey so far, thinking in the context of the indie agency landscape now, the pendulum seems to have swung very much into the independent agency kind of world, which is great to see. What advice would you give to the new group of founders who are kind of in your shoes as it was 30 years ago, thinking of starting their new agency?
I think it's those age-old principles that when I look back and when I'm asked a question like this, it is still the most important thing, I believe, to put culture at the heart of it and to put people first, because you're just not going to get anything lasting, endurable or valuable out of it if you don't. And all we're talking about is AI, all we're hearing about is robots, but we are still human. We are still human, and we still have our very much, human-centered needs, desires, wishes. And I think that's never going to change, so I think still put your people at the heart of it, even though people are being replaced left, right and center. And, people are concerned about, their sustainability themselves. So, but I don't think we can lose if we keep our eyes firmly focused on that.
Moo Webber, founder of Holy Cow Creative, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story.
Thanks, Simon. Thank you. And thank you so much for your guidance and your leadership throughout my process. And as I keep saying, I couldn't have done it without you. And I'm so happy to be where we've landed. Thank you so much.
Thank you.